And introduce our guest today, our favorite Money Matters guy, Rich Warfield. Rich, welcome to Retirepreneur TV.
Thank you, Donna. Nice to be here.
Rich is partner and lead of the Hudson office for Donovan, Klimczak and Company. Tell us more about your firm and what you guys do.
Well, Donna, we actually go by DKC-Warfield and Hudson, and the intention there was to have my name in the firm of the Hudson office, you know, for continuity. I founded the office, or founded this firm in Hudson back in 2004 when I left a larger firm, and then merged into DKC January 1st of 2017. After 2 years, it's hard to believe the merger's been pretty successful. You know, like anything else, you have your bumps along the way, and you know, we've been able to move and grow a little bit, and we're looking forward to a strong next 4 or 5 years.
Well, and what's interesting, so I often, now you're in a much bigger sphere than we are, us retirepreneurs, but I often say, you know, partnering with others can really expand, but you have to kind of work out what that partnership looks like.
You do, and if I may tell you that having a deeper bench is helpful for a small firm, whether it be an accounting firm, law firm, you know, or some type of company that makes something, just in case people get sick, people retire, people don't really like what they're doing. It's nicer to be able to pull from a deeper bench from other offices. DKC has 5 offices. Hudson's the second largest. Fairlawn's that we call the mothership, and then it has Strongsville, Louisville, and Canton. So just having a deeper bench is important because you know, there are a lot of demands in our business, and we're turning the page here. We're just getting through the month of January with, you know, payroll tax returns, 1099s. I've already got about 10 or 11 corporate returns done because people are coming in quicker this year for some reason, it seems like.
No kidding. They're thinking about it sooner, or?
Business-wise.
Okay.
Business-wise. And personal, I've already got about maybe 2 or 3 1040 clients that have already handed me off their stuff. As you know, yesterday was January 28th. Besides being my birthday,
Happy birthday.
Thank you. It was the official filing date. The IRS opened their doors. I know with all the drama and everything going on in Washington, they open their doors and they want to be able to process returns. Now, the issue with processing returns, if you have a more complicated return, there are certain forms that are not going to be ready because they have to be updated through a series of updates, A, from IRS, B, to the software provider, and then down to us as a tax practitioner. So you have a very simple return, like the old 1040 EZ, you could file right away. But if you have additional schedules, which we'll get into when we get
Sure.
further into this, you're going to have to wait.
Well, and so you joined us a year ago for an interview here on Retirepreneur TV, and there was major changes happening, and you actually very quickly distilled the greatest hits of those challenges, you know, the changes, so we could understand them at a high level. I sense there's a less in the way of changes going on, but this is our annual, you know, tell us what we need to know specifically for this crowd. They're either solopreneurs or maybe they have a couple, 3 employees. What do they need to be thinking about as far as money matters, taxes, et cetera?
Well, the biggest provision that really stirred a lot of controversy, and it was passed very quickly in this last law that was passed in December of 17, was what we call Section 199A deduction. Basically, sole practitioners, S-corps, and partnerships. S-corps and partnerships throw off a K-1. The K-1 goes onto your 1040. As opposed to Schedule C. A Schedule C is just additional form that you add to your 1040. They are possibly eligible for a 20% deduction. CASIC back in 2013 passed a provision in the Ohio revised code that would allow people to back off up to $250,000 of their income. If you're not doing that, you should look at your last 4 tax returns. Come see me at 581 Boston Mills Road and I'll file amended returns. I've done that several times for about a half dozen clients this last year, or clients that thought they could do it on their own. But anyway, the provision is similar to the CASIC's provision. It started out as a 25% back off, then a 50% back off, and then it's been 100% back off for the last 4 years in Ohio.
Okay.
The way it works federally, Don, is that if you have a K-1 number of $100,000, this is just a raw example, that K-1 number is called QBI, Qualified Business Income. And it qualifies if you meet certain conditions for a 20% qualified business income deduction. So in a simple world that we all would like to live in, but we don't, it would be 20% of $100,000. Or if you're a Schedule C and you made, let's say hypothetically, you made $100,000 but you had $50,000 of expenses, it would be 20% of $50,000. So it would be $10,000 would come right off your tax return. There are certain limitations. There's a wage limitation and there's a 2.5% adjusted asset base limitation if you're a corporation that is heavy in fixed assets. That is the biggest provision that was passed. And when I joined the lovely tax rule back in 1983 out of Kent State in New York City, we had to deal with the 1986 Tax Reform Act. You and I talked about last time that it seems like every 32 years there's a major tax act. This was the 1986 code, and they came out with Code Section 469, which deals with real estate, passive activity loss rules. Well, this is another one of those that's throwing some of these older people that are doing tax returns into a quicker retirement mode because they don't want to deal with it. There was 193 pages of regulations issued in August. They called proposed regs on this provision, and the final regs just came out 2 Fridays ago on this provision. So that's one of them, Donna. As you all may know by now, entertainment's no longer deductible, but your meals are 50% deductible if it's a legitimate meals or a meal expense, i.e. you've documented who you met with, the purpose, the day, and how much it costs. There's other things in the code. There's been changes in depreciation, the way you can depreciate fixed assets. Anything purchased after December 27th, 2017, it was eligible for 100% bonus depreciation as opposed to the old law, which is 50. If you bought it prior to 9/27/2017, you'd still have to take 50. And you're probably thinking, well, what about all those people that go out and buy that big SUV at the end of the year, and they brag about their Section 179 deduction on that big SUV? Interesting question. 179 is still intact. Okay, you can deduct up to $500,000 in fixed assets, so it's either bonus or 179. However, when it comes to luxury automobiles, you're limited to 25,000. That provision has not changed in the code. So Dr. So-and-so goes and buys an SUV the day after Christmas, drives it to, well, as we all know, a commute to and from his office is not deductible, it's personal, but drives to go see some patients or pick up office supplies or pick up surgical supplies and puts 500 miles on his car, he can legitimately say, okay, it's close to 100% business deduction. Well, he's going to deduct up to $25,000 on that SUV, plus bonus depreciation, plus regular depreciation. So if that SUV costs 60 grand, he could probably get 40 in the first year. Mission accomplished. He's been able to save some taxes.
Yeah. These are all the things that I think that sometimes we don't know what we don't know, and that's why we need to tap into an expert. So because there's even things you're saying now, and I'm 10 years in business, and I can, oh really? Let me jot that one down. You said something earlier that with the major tax changes that happened last year, did I understand that that might have pushed some people that were near the finish line of their career to go, you know what, this is going to take too long for me to wrap my head around these new changes, so I'm going to start to wind down my business. Is that kind of what you're...
It's somewhat correct. I mean, tax is a very intriguing, thing in life. It's something that constantly changes, and if people like change, I know a lot of people don't like change in their life. They like the, that routine. It's exciting. So maybe some older professionals say, hey, I got more time on my hands. I'm going to tackle this Tax Reform Act and go after it and stay in for a few more years until I'm ready to make a decision on my own. But then again, there's going to be some that I just can't comprehend it anymore. It's so difficult. And if you remember one thing that Trump wanted to push out, because our Tax Act had been 32 years. It went from 86 to 2018. It's 32 years. Prior to 86, it was 1954 code that we all followed, that he wanted to simplify the tax form. So on page 1, it does look like a postcard. Page 1 is taxpayer's name, spouse, address, dependents, social security numbers, blah, blah, blah. Page 2 is a full page form, starting with income and going all the way down to balance due or refund. And all those other schedules that lead into it are pretty much intact, give or take a couple modifications. So he did kind of deliver on page 1, but the rest of the forms are still full pages.
Got it.
So
some changes, and I'm listening to this and thinking to myself, even as a business owner through the years, there's a lot of talk about with boomers retiring. The talent pool is shrinking. Sometimes it's hard to find good candidates for new hires. Is that something you're seeing? And would you ever, and it's not, don't be, would you ever look at, some kind of alternative pool of talent, like a part-time 1099?
For me or for my workers?
Even for your, no, not for your workers, but if you had a gap to fill and you couldn't find a
Yeah.
candidate, we're often advocating that things are warming up a little bit, you know, and it depends. So I guess I'm asking you a loaded question there, but you know, in general, do you see businesses starting to warm up to the thought of maybe getting
Absolutely.
part-timers?
And this is not a knock against the younger generation. It's just a different type of individual. They value, you know, quality of life. Not that you and I didn't when we grew up, but we were told you got to work hard and you know, and be successful and drive and that. Not once again that they don't. They just find a different way of doing it, and they don't put in the 12-hour days like
Right.
we used to, and then be fearful if you left at 11 hours and 59 minutes that someone's going to write you up.
Right.
But no, I see it's a problem in our CPA business, just like it's a problem in the electrician and the plumber business. Kids want to go in it, but remember now it's a 5-year college education requirement. And then if you want to be a CPA, you got to pass the exam on top of that. Not everybody wants to do that. Not everybody wants to make that commitment. With apps on phones and everything, people want to take the shortcut and said they want the easy answer. And that's the way our environments become. Even, I'm getting off the fairway here a little bit here, but even when you use the tax software that we have, which is called UltraTax, the software is so dummied down that you really don't need to know tax law as much as you used to. You used to have to know tax law. You used to have to know what the result would look like. So, because the softwares are more sophisticated, Donna. So no, to get to your question and to answer your question, our workforce is getting older, and to find younger kids to go into it, you really got to grab onto them. You got to mentor them. Obviously, you got to pay them right because they're going to start looking elsewhere. But no, we do have a lot of older gentlemen and ladies in our workforce.
Interesting. And then another trend, because the workplace is changing. I'm stopping so we can edit this. Okay. So the workforce is changing. And another thing we're noticing is that people are working their job. So this doesn't get to the balance so much, but they're working their job and they're taking on maybe a side hustle gig every now and then to try to, especially the people that are age 50 and older, you know, trying to think, what am I going to do down the road? Let me try to do some freelance work on the side while I'm still working my job. But I think, you know, do you have advice for these kind of side hustle folks, like from a, you know, just from a financial tax standpoint? What do they need to be mindful of?
I've had 3 clients that have left the or are still in process of leaving the full-time employment scene to, you know, to chase their dream. And pretty much 2 of the 3 are what you call sole practitioners or Schedule Cs, and they've been successful in driving up that number on the side, almost to the point where, you know, it's getting to where they can depart their full-time job. And for now, they're just unincorporated entities. I'd like to see that number get up a little higher before I flip them over to an S Corp or a partnership. Or, well, first of all, in order to be a partnership, you need to have 2 partners. So the preferred entity would probably be an S Corp, going from a Schedule C LLC to an S Corp. I do have 1 client that did leave the employment scene last summer, was able to gather 6 to 7 or 8 partners and do like a little public or private offering, and he's now up and going in his own sole practitioner. Well, he converted from a sole practitioner to a partnership because he's got 7 other partners now. So it's exciting for him because he's chasing his dream, plus he has people that believe in him that have helped funded him.
But in the early, so that's kind of as they progress down the road in the early stages when they take on their first gig, or maybe it's 2019 and they work with a couple clients. It seems like a lot of people might go LLC. And are there caps on when the tax situations become more complex for them?
That's a good question, Donna. I mean, you know, some people say, do I need to be an LLC or can I just be on unincorporated sole proprietor? And some people want that LLC protection and limited liability protection. Obviously, if you're rendering personal services, that may not 100% protect you because it may pierce it because you're running as opposed to manufacturing or making something. Usually I leave them alone because there's an extra return that has to be done and I have to charge them for it, called an S Corp or partnership return, and then that flows to their personal. So usually I leave them at a Schedule C until they probably hit somewhere between $40,000 and $50,000. Then I start showing them the difference between, because on the self-employment Schedule C form, you got to pay the 15.3% self-employment tax. On an S corp, you can kind of shelter that and take a small salary out of it. So it's got to be to the point where it makes sense to file a separate return, for me to charge them to do a separate return, and then at some point in time, if this is a one-year gig and they don't think it's going to be continuous in years 2020, 21,
it's not worth
making it an S corp, because then it's going to flip back to a Schedule C. So it's really, you got to listen to what your clients are telling you, and you kind of have to listen during the course of the year how they're doing. So we reinforce, or we encourage is the word I'm looking for, that they reach out and talk to us as the year is going. Right now, just like financial advisors, we're touching people's stuff a lot more than we do during the summer or the fall. So now's a good time to have a lot of dialogue, even though we're in an incredibly quick hurry, just like your life is, Donna, and you want to move that return out. You want to give it the attention it deserves, but you want to move it out.
Sure.
And so you can get to the next one.
Yep.
But it's important to do those touches now, because most people, what we find in our profession, you could call them 10 times during the summer. They're not ready until October 14th when their tax return is due on extension.
Yeah, yep. Nope. Been there, done that. All excellent advice, and we have just about hit the finish line. I'm going to give you one last question. I mean, we know each other from Rotary. You are such a presence in the community. So I'm actually going to shift away from money on my last question and talk about networking. I mean, these folks have probably worked a job, and maybe they're not as known in the community. Do you have some tips or advice? Because you are definitely a presence here in Hudson.
Well, when I met with my first marketing person years ago, when I founded the firm here back in, gosh, it's 20 years ago, before I merged into a larger firm, then unmerged, she said, you need to be present. I'll give Allison the credit she deserves. Crawford's her name. I believe it was her. You need to be present both in your community and your workplace. And my workplace has changed from Hudson over to Fair Lawn and then back to Hudson again. So, and when it came back to Hudson, it was easy because I was involved in both my community and workplace.
Sure.
If people don't know you, then it's going to be hard for you to get business. And Hudson, as a kid, I moved about 13 times growing up, so I really never had strong roots that I could call home. And after I graduated from Kent State in '83, I wanted to make a home somewhere. And I've embraced Hudson. Hudson's a great community, as you are well aware, and you have your business here, and you and I are both involved in Rotary. Hudson's a great community. I know, like anything, it has its ups and downs, and some people call it the bubble for our kids, the Hudson bubble. But it's a great business community. It's a great charitable community, and you need to get your name out there. I'm involved in Rotary, Chamber, Hudson Community Foundation, on board for Northwest Bank. If people don't know who you are, it's going to be very hard to get business.
Yep.
And Hudson, there's a lot of people that come home late at night that work a big job for a big company, and then they have to leave early in the morning. So they're really not involved in the community until the weekends. I broke away from going to Fair Lawn to come back to Hudson because I want to be involved in my community. I want to be part of my community. And whether you're a bean counter or what you do for your clients on the consulting side, or you're doing something else, the only way, if you want small business, you have to go after it, okay? And they got to trust you. I have a lot of gray hair, a gray sweater that matches. And if you're a youngster watching this program, just be patient, because you'll have to gain their trust.
Yeah, it's not instant coffee, so you just get out there, and it isn't as hard as it looks. Hey, if folks are listening, first of all, thank you for joining us. A wealth of insights. If people are listening and they want to reach out to you, what would you suggest they do? Dana does a great job at our front desk. She takes a lot of my appointments. Our number is 330-655-1395, or you can email me at rwarfield@dkc-cpa.com. That is our new email, or you can still use the old one, rwarfield@warfieldandcompany.com. They just kind of merge together. Or you can go to our website, and you can check us out there. Once again, the name of the firm is DKC-Warfield and Company in Hudson. We're affiliated with DKC, Donovan Klemenczak and Company in Fair Lawn and the other offices. And Ted Klemenczak is our managing partner and has 2 boys in the business right now, soon to be hopefully 3rd boy. So that's how you can get a hold of us. We do a lot of business returns, we do a lot of personal returns, and we have a good staff. We have very talented staff. Please don't wait until April 14th to contact us. We will probably be tied up with finishing up other people's stuff. Understandable. Thanks so much, Rich. And with that, we have hit the finish line. We hope you caught a few tips here and maybe got provoked some thoughts for you. And we hope you'll join us next time. Thanks for watching.